Chapter 2. We mammals need to stick together. Merle flipped through the Cygtan channels on his video screen. Being a Jaspin, none of the programming was created with his taste in mind. But when you're working from a remote communication booster system on the edge of civilization, you need some sort of hobby to keep you sane. Merle's hobby was boosting and unscrabbling the public broadcast of nearby alien species. He found the human shows more entertaining, partially because fellow mammals being fellow mammals there was more to relate to, and partially because there was a human mining research station not too far away, with humans willing to discuss the shows with him. Some of them even liked watching popular Jaspin shows. Raoul thought it was a waste of resources to boost the channels for the humans, but the commander approved of the cultural exchange and encouraged Merle to practice his foreign language skills. Human speech wasn't that hard. It was more a matter of not adding too many verbal flourishes to the words. Cygtan speech was more problematic. They spoke with more than just their mouths. They also used leg-wing striations. Merle could read the written language, but he could only make out some of the spoken stuff. Not that it seemed to matter. For the past year, Cygtan entertainment had progressed from relatively normal mix of drama, editorial, information shows, etc., to shows almost exclusively featuring sex and violence and eating. Food preparation shows still aired, but they too seemed more violent and impatient. It's like they're imploding intellectually, he muttered to himself before switching to his favorite Jaspin action show. Behind him, Yayla laughed. "You are so funny when you're being hypocritical," she said, pulling up a chair next to him. "You gripe about the Cygtans imploding intellectually, and then you watch this stuff full of shoot first, then think, idiots." "Everything in moderation, Yayla, even gore," he said. "I wonder what's changed for them." "Beats me," Merle shrugged. "I don't understand enough of the language to figure out the newscast." "Then why don't you just download a translator application?" she said. "They do exist for Cygtan, you know." "Because it takes away the challenge." Yayla laughed again. "Men." Merle changed the subject. "Anything interesting on your shift?" "We're getting some unaccounted for signal disruptions, but nothing we couldn't adjust for. The commander's already recorded it in his daily report," she said. "We're supposed to pay extra attention to them for the next day at least." "Probably some stellar activity we haven't caught wind of yet," Merle said. "Wonder if Curvin and his gang have noticed it." "You speak human better than the rest of us," Yayla said. "Why don't you find out?" Merlin would have teased her about using a translator application herself, except he wanted to talk to his human friends. He and Yayla went to the office where Raoul was doing his shift and sat in an open comm station. Extending his retractable claws, Merle typed in the coded frequency for the human research outpost. A dark-haired human came into view. "Hi, Merle," he said in his native language. "What's up?" "Nothing much, Tom," he said. "We were just wondering if you had noticed anything unusual of late." "You mean the signature disruptions?" Tom said, nodding his head. "Yeah, we noticed them. Do you have any idea what's causing them?" "Not a clue." "Well, that makes two of us. We haven't figured out what's causing it either." Merle nodded his head. "Is Curvin around?" "Sorry, Merle. Jim is doing some testing now." Merle thanked the human communications officer and ended the call. Over his shoulder, Raoul asked, "If you are such good friends with Dr. Curvin, why don't you call him by his intimate name?" "Curvin's more fun to say than Jim," Merle answered. "Besides, he doesn't mind either way. It's only when I put doctor in front of it that it becomes a formal address." Then he added, "Your grasp for human is improving." Raoul chuckled. "Shouldn't you be calling it Solarian Prime? Humans have more than one language, after all." "Oh," Merle exclaimed. "Someone has been doing some serious studying." "You like entertainment?" "I like history books," Raoul answered. "Now, if you excuse me, I have work to do." Yayla grabbed Merle's arm. "We better go," she said. "You know how hard it is for Raoul to multitask." They both managed to duck the cup thrown at him. Merle relieved Raoul after a restful sleep. The disruptions had been occurring more frequently, but it doesn't hurt to have a change of pace now and then. Halfway through his shift, Merle had gotten the hang of adjusting the signals to the point of being second nature. It was then that a high-priority distress call came from the nearest Jasmine world, Naran. Merle routed them all to all the necessary channels and began recording the other messages to resend after priority ones came through. The signal traffic was too heavy to actually listen to the message, but so in frustration, he hit the station alarm and worked furiously to get the signals through while his fellow comm operators came into the room to help out. "What's happening?" Yayla asked. "I don't know yet," he told her. "I got one high priority distress call and then everything else went crazy." Yayla was already helping with the extra traffic when Raul came in, rubbing his eyes. Before sitting at a comm center, he answered a call from the commander. Merle and Yayla were too busy to see the shock on his face. Finally, the call ended and Raul took a deep breath. "We've been ordered to go silent," he said. "The Cygtans tried to knock out our defenses on Naran. Luckily, the planetary defense satellites were able to damage the electromagnetic pulse cannon before it could be fired. The invading ship was repelled, but not before it knocked out some of the energy grid with plasma shots. They think the ship is now heading our direction. The commander wants us to go as dark as possible." The three of them began shutting down auxiliary systems while the mainframe performed a backup of its data. As they sat in the dim light, a thought occurred to Merle. "Shouldn't we warn the humans?" he asked. "I'm sure the commander is taking care of that," Yayla said. "Besides, you don't survive to be an interstellar race without knowing that you shouldn't engage in a two-front war." "Well, the ship might be desperate," Raul said, "but I can't see them going for it. It's on an airless planetoid. They would need special equipment to breach the building without losing atmosphere." Merle took a deep breath and remained quiet, letting all the flaws he saw in his co-workers' arguments go unspoken, because there really wasn't anything they could do about the situation. Thinking about it only made him feel worse. He concentrated instead on the fact that Naran was able to repel the Cygtan. Maybe the research outpost could. Merle stopped himself again. A research station doesn't usually have the same defenses as a planet. Without saying a word, he went to a comm and activated. "What are you doing?" Raul asked. "What do you think I'm doing?" Raul cursed. "Well, if you're going to warn them, then use a text message. It will take less power and not be as noticeable to the Cygtans. Let me look at the comm." Raul tapped a cryptic message on the screen and sent it. Merle looked at him strangely as he shut the comm up. "What does doing a Pearl Harbor mean?" he asked. "I told you I liked history," Raul said. "It's a reference to a sneak attack during a war on the humans' original homeworld. It was the first time the race used nuclear weapons. From what I can tell, every human's schoolchild is taught about it." They returned to their seats and waited until the commander's message came. Merle answered it, and after receiving the message that they received, he asked the commander if it was possible for someone to check on the human outpost. To Merle's relief, he agreed. Immediately he tried to raise the outpost. It was several minutes before his hail was answered. Tom was covered in blood, and his skin had a grayish tint to it. "They got him," he said. "We got your warning, but our mining lasers could only do so much damage to their ship. Merle, the bastards are actually eating us." Tom turned to show the blood-soaked impromptu bandage where his arm used to be. I don't think I have long to live, but we were able to get some of our people into the blast shelters. Please send someone to get us." Merle sat there in horror as he watched Tom faint. He could see the door behind the prostrate human warp and bend under the pressure of something pounding on it. Behind him, Raul was contacting their superiors and pleading for someone to rescue the humans. The door in the human comm room burst open. Merle barely recognized the creature as Cygtan. Instead of being green or yellow, it was a dark, muddy red. Yayla turned off the screen as it reached for Tom. "We don't need to watch that," she said. "And it's time for you to get some rest. Take a sedative, Merle." Merle stared at the ceiling of his room, waiting for the sedatives to kick in, while his mind concocted all sorts of horrors for the humans on the research station. His sleep was full of bloody humans being torn apart by black, monstrous bugs. Finally, he saw Jim Curvin trying to get his attention. The sandy-haired man was actually shaking. Merle sat up and rubbed his eyes. Curvin was shaking him. That part wasn't a dream. How? Why? Merle sputtered. Your military figured out that the Cygtans were planning to refuel at our station before coming back to attack Naran with the other ships that arrived later. So they wanted to destroy it before it could make it. And while they were there, they figured they could at least remove the few of us who survived to a safer place. I suspect they're going to use our station as a command post, but at the moment, I'm not too upset about that. In the meanwhile, they're letting us bunk with you guys until arrangements can be made to get us back to Enchirian space. The Jasmine gave his human friend a bear hug. How many of you were we able to save, Merle asked. Only 8, Kerwin said. You might want to be glad about that. We're probably going to have to be here a while. Rumor has it that the Cygtans are attacking both human civilizations as well as your own. What possessed them to do that? Based on the reports Yala's been getting, I'd say hunger, Kerwin answered. In every face-to-face encounter, the Cygtans have tried to eat their victims, even the Jasmine ones. By the way, where did you come up with the idea of referencing World War II? We were lucky that Tom was an ancient military buff. It was Rawls' idea, he said. He was under the impression that since it was the first war you humans used nuclear weapons in, every human would have learned about it in school. Learning and retaining are two different things, Kerwin pointed out. But I'm glad Rawls sent the message. Even without fully understanding the reference, most of us realized it was a warning. Kerwin? We saw Tom's death, Merle said. I'm really sorry for the horrors you went through. Kerwin shook his head. We're not the only one going through this, Merle. The Cygtan staffs are only skeleton staff. Most of the Cygtans are in a state of suspended animation. As soon as they can secure a shuttle landing site, they start waking the sleepers up and transferring to the surface. They'll eat just about anything organic. We saw the visuals for Howlem. They literally ate trees and wildlife. We're not talking about a war here. We're talking about a freaking lotus swarm. Merle hadn't heard the term locust before, but he could make out from the context it was similar to the destructive insect swarms he had read about in school. A pit developed in his stomach as he thought of his uncle, aunt, and cousins in Howlem. He hoped they paid attention to Gramps' story on how to survive a Cygtan swarm. They can't eat all of us, he said at last. We're warm-blooded. We can live in more climates than they can. Let's hope we can stop them before we have to rely on that advantage, said Kerwin.